Everyone, and welcome into the Golden Sombrero Show live on BlazeRadioOnline.com. And the first time in quite some time, we got games to talk about, guys.
Oh
Baseball
yeah.
season is officially underway. We've most teams have at least 6 games under their belt. Some teams have 7. It's been an exciting week of baseball. I mean, what has been one thing that has stuck out to you guys? This is obviously Dominic Stern, Cole Bradley, and Brian Blank on the Golden Sombrero Show.
Yeah, man, it's been just really fun to obviously, like you said, just to have games back. First off, I think I mentioned this last week, or I've been telling some people about it over the last week, but it's crazy to think that we only really lost officially a week to the lockout. Games were supposed to start. I think it was on March 31st was supposed to be the initial opening day. You know, April 7th is the new one. Like we literally only lost a week, and those games are going to be made up as doubleheaders. So first off, my first thoughts is games are back. That's awesome. It's all you can ask for as a fan. Second off, already kind of seeing the particularly on the pitching side of things, guys either who have clearly regressed or are starting to make more adjustments. I've seen some pretty significant extremes, and I'm sure I'll get into examples I think later on here. But there's some guys who are shocking me in a good way, and that are kind of like wowing me in a bad way. So particularly on the pitching side of things, that's always sometimes how it goes early on in the season. But yeah, a lot of young talent on display early on as well. That's always really fun to see. It's just good to have it back. It's really good to have it back.
I agree. I'm just glad that baseball's back. I'm glad that the lockout did not really impact any games, knowing that they're going to be made up with doubleheaders. So that's great as well. For stuff that sticked out, I mean, it's tough to say 'cause the pitching that stuck out to me with a couple performances have been really poor. But hitting wise, I think that looking at it, especially for I know the Royals and maybe a couple other teams, took a couple games to get the power going a little bit. So that stuck out to me a little bit. But also, I'm gonna look at some of the Mets games. Pitchers are having a little bit of trouble with the grip on the new baseballs, and I think that's shown as a couple Mets got hit up near the head and the neck area. But it seems like the pitchers have a little bit of trouble gripping the new baseballs, which could also come from not having a full spring training to get used to them. But that's just another thing that stuck out to me.
The pitcher's adjustment has been the big thing, and we're kind of still seeing the effects of that. And
Yeah.
we'll talk a little bit about that as it was clearly put on display today. But we we're not missing any regular season games, but we're still feeling the effect of missing some spring training games.
Mhm.
Almost 2 weeks of spring training were lost, and not only just games, but also a couple of practices leading up into that, and getting to see your teammates in live ABs, whether that be pitchers or hitters. So some pitchers are still finding their way in, getting in their groove, and I think in a couple of weeks from now we'll really start to see. I don't want to say true baseball, but baseball probably at its best form that we're going to see this year, as there's a limited number of injuries. But I mean, I know that there's already been 2 Padre pitchers who have gotten hurt, and you can't like point to it and say, well, this and this and this is leading to these injuries, because that's just immature. And I'm also not a doc. That'd be really dumb of me. But I mean, one Padres reliever already probably towards UCL and is going to be heading towards Tommy John surgery. And you never like to see that. Doesn't matter what team they're on, because of course that is such a grueling recovery process. I mean, they literally take your torn ligament, they take it out of you, and then they take a pretty much useless ligament in your leg, and then like
Yeah,
staple it.
UCL reconstruction is very
Unreal.
complicated.
So it obviously sucks, and you really got to hope these injuries are going to be limited, and that the baseball lockout didn't take too much away from these players and their health. But let's talk about it, because I kind of alluded to it. Some pitchers have not been able to go as deep into ball games, whether it be pitch count or just innings. And we saw that today in Clayton Kershaw, who was perfect through 7 innings on just 80 pitches. And obviously Clayton Kershaw, the greatest pitcher of this generation, possibly the greatest or one of the greatest pitchers of all time, he unfortunately had to be pulled from the game just because he didn't feel like he was worked up. Ryan, I'm gonna go to you first, just because I mean I saw you grab your mic, so I can tell that you're ready to talk,
Yeah, he's
and
ready to go.
we know that you could talk for a while. So I'll let you go into it. What are your thoughts on Kershaw there?
I understand that since he was behind schedule with some injuries I had from last season, his pitch count was really set at 75. But if there's one thing that man has not done in his career, it has been thrown a perfect game. He's thrown a no hitter before. But what you have to look at in this situation is you're about to do, you can create history with 6 more outs. And if I'm in that situation, I'm going out there. There's nothing stopping me from going out there. And I understand the pitch count. I completely get it. You're trying to save him for later in the season, knowing the injury struggles that he's had in recent years. It's a smart move to cut his innings, cut his pitch count, but not in this game. I think that when you have that opportunity to throw, I believe, number 24 in terms of perfect games in MLB history, you just go out there and pitch. And especially for where his pitch count was, having 13 strikeouts was really good. And not only could he have set another perfect game in history, but with 2 more strikeouts and a perfect game, would have the most strikeouts in perfect game in MLB history. So that also would have been cool, but you got to let the man pitch. 80 pitches. If you want to pull him after the 8th, fine, I get it. Bring in someone. But 80 pitches, he had something left. And if he gets tired, if he said he's done, then you pull him. But if you're the manager in that situation, you let him go pitch. It's kind of blasphemous in a sense that he did not get the opportunity to go back out there. But I understand in the sense of keeping him healthy for the entire season and eventually once we get to the playoffs. So the Dodgers have a better chance of winning it all once again. But you got to throw him out there. And I know that in the Sports Bureau today, Michael Garaffa went off saying Dave Roberts should be fired and all this. No. It's
Michael Garaffa doing extreme takes.
This is coming from a Mets fan.
Right.
Yeah. That's all you need to hear is it comes from a Mets
Take
fan.
it with a grain of salt.
But in that situation, you let your pitcher go throw. It's kind of let the pitch count go in a sense. Let it go. Go out, do what you can do. You give up a hit, we'll pull you. That's fine. But you do not cut him short of setting history. So I completely disagree with the call. I would let him go at least 1 more inning, but I don't understand the decision is what I'm trying to get at here.
Yeah. First off, to start sort of my take on this, really just overall, I am so impressed with a performance like this because Ryan sort of alluded to it, but to have the stuff that Clayton Kershaw has, which is great stuff, but at the point he is in his career, it's not nearly as good as it used to be. It's still well above average, but to have the stuff that he has and to come out in your first start of a given season in Minnesota, where it looked like it was freaking freezing today, by the way. Yeah. So, to battle those elements, that's tougher for hitters than it is for pitchers, but still, it's tough on everyone. And to throw 80 pitches in 7 innings and to not walk a batter and to strike batters out in the double digits, or to rack up double-digit strikeouts, 13 to be exact. That's sort of telling you that he's downing guys on 3-4 pitches at most. Like these aren't long grinded out ABs. They're fouling pitches back. No, it's 1 pitch, 2 pitch, and then maybe a foul ball, and then it's you're down looking or swinging. Pretty much every single time he struck out the side in the 6th, if I'm not mistaken. Just really, really impressive stuff in his first outing of 2022. It's scary for the rest of the league, but as someone who appreciates pitching, that was really great to watch. So kudos on that front. To throw 7 perfect innings in your first out of a season is insane. In terms of how I feel about him getting pulled when he did, I think there must have been some kind of conversation because I was following on Twitter the post game reaction to it, and I follow some of the Dodgers writers, and
Two
they
of them are Cronkite guys.
right, shouts out. And they were saying that Kershaw was sort of in agreement with I wasn't, like you guys said, he wasn't feeling ramped up. It was like that was the right move to pull me out. We were only going to throw 75, 80 for a first start. All of his teammates backed him up and said the same thing. So it's clear that this was probably an executive decision where it was like, hey, Clayton, if you feel good, I mean, heck, you look good enough. We'll let you start the 8th, but let's assess how you feel. And maybe he said something along the lines of, hey, you know what? I think I've done my part today. It also helps when the inning before, I'm pretty sure the Dodgers hit like 3 consecutive home runs at one point. So it's like, okay, I'm working with
the sheriff.
Yeah, I'm working with a massive lead at this point. It's early in the season. It's my first start. I feel a lot better about being removed from this game. I have to feel like that might have been more of what the conversation was, instead of Dave Roberts literally just coming up to him and saying, and without hesitation saying, you're good, like, nice job, ice it up, get him in 5 more days. So in that sense, I understand it more, but I'm in the same boat as everyone else. I think realistically, if any of us, and I speak also for myself, if I was in the situation, that's an enormously fleeting feeling. And to be 6 outs away from being the 24th player or 24th instance of, a perfect game, like the way he was throwing, he would have easily done it. Easily. Like I cannot feasibly sit here and reason as to if there was even a chance that the way the Twins were swinging it, that they were going to figure it out in the final 2 innings. I just don't think they would have. I think bringing in the new arm actually did them way more, benefited them more than anything.
Like pulling Blake Snell from Game 6 of the World Series.
Right. And in a game like that, it's amplified even more because, the last thing you want to do is make a stupid decision and then boom, your season's over. And in a game like this, it's like, let's at least have him start the 8th. If he gets an out, then have him get a second out. Play it by that, Give
him a base runner. And
absolutely.
Because there's been several instances, especially of late, of combined no-hitters. And no one, they're not looked at as seriously, and rightfully so. There's never been a combined perfect game. And it would have been kind of funny if the Dodgers, who, of course, won this said Mickey Mouse World Series, also had a Mickey Mouse perfect game. It would have been so fitting. It would have been so awesome. The memes would have been incredible.
Maybe that's exactly what they were trying to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they didn't try to avoid it because they took Kershaw out.
They're like, okay, Kershaw's getting pulled. All right, Vezina, just give up a hit. We don't want to make history and
do this
and
for the sake
have
of
everyone put an asterisk next to it.
Yeah, for the sake of humanity. Vezina, you're gonna take one for the team.
That would be very on brand of us. We don't want to.
Right, and it was also funny because Kershaw is we talked about how he's one of the greatest pitchers of all time. He's probably the greatest regular season pitcher of all time. His postseason success is not as good as his regular season success. I mean, no one's gonna argue that. He is a better postseason pitcher than a lot of people give him credit for, but that doesn't matter. And when you look at it, my friend was saying, well, he's going to blow his back out in June anyways. You might as well let him try and pitch a perfect game. And that was funny. Shout out to you, Jack.
I just think where his pitch count was at, in how dominant he was through 7 innings. Like I said, 13 strikeouts on 80 pitches. Like that is impressive. Like that's super impressive. Like, at least let him start the 8th. I think it would be more so if I was in Dave Roberts' shoes, I would say, hey, Kersh, if you want to come out, that's fine. But how about you start the 8th? What do you think of that? And if he's like, no, definitively no, and then it's like, okay. I mean, shoot, you just struck out 13 guys and, through 7 perfect innings. I'm not going to argue with you. Like,
right. And none of us here had the stuff to throw a perfect game.
Absolutely not.
But if I did have a perfect game and it was 2 innings away, you would have to drag me off the mound.
I'd be the same way. I would.
And I guess Clayton's not that guy.
I guess
No,
he's not.
just kidding. Just kidding. That's unprofessional of me. I mean, Clayton Kershaw, like I said, one of the greatest pitchers of all time. I think he's the greatest. Uh, he had a chance to, further etch himself in baseball history today, and unfortunately, he didn't do it.
Mhm.
It's not his fault.
Yeah, and I just want to go back to what Cole said there. The way he was pitching, it looked like he would have gotten it. Because I watched the bottom of the fifth on, in that sixth inning, I watched it. He struck out the side with ease. He was dominant. He was locating he was locating pitches like he was in his prime. He was painting the corners better than an artist could. That's how dominant he was. So when I saw him fist bumping, shaking hands, and hugging people in the dugout after the seventh, I was confused because the pitch count for where he was at in the game with 13 strikeouts was insane. You let him go. Yeah, I completely agree. Was his ability to get quick outs that were strikeouts, not get deep into counts, which was key for him, and he did that. Yeah. Yeah, he was fantastic throughout. I still think the decision was wrong. I still think it's a terrible decision, but I understand that since he didn't have a full spring training, he was behind in his rehab. I get it that they didn't want to push him. But in this situation, being able to throw a perfect game, you kind of throw that stuff out the door. And if you need to, you have a bullpen game and you rest him an extra one. Okay. That's just how you have to look at it. And I disagree with the decision. I would have let him go at least one more. That's just how I feel.
And you'd expect a guy who went to Highland Park High School and is a champion, obviously, to represent, especially after Scotty Scheffler won the Masters. So a little disappointing there.
He's already won, though. But
yes, he won a Mickey Mouse ring. It's okay. You can say it, Brian.
Okay, Mickey Mouse Padres playoff appearance.
I never said. I mean, they were about to collapse. Like, very on the record saying that.
Okay, at least you'll admit it.
Some people will, people won't. Other notable things. I mean, we can just talk about it today. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has 3 home runs today. Certainly making a case to be the American League MVP after, he wasn't robbed, but he had a season that almost every other year would have won.
Yeah.
AL MVP. Of course, he was just going up against like the most historic season of all time in terms of what Shohei Ohtani did. I mean, yeah, I believe one of you picked him to be MVP, right?
I picked Vladdy to win MVP.
I picked him, but he's like my mainstream pick, if you will.
Right. So I mean, does this further back up what you guys said about Vladdy being an MVP candidate? I mean, he already
100%.
is, but
I think so.
And this is what I expected from him, was to come out on fire, hitting bombs, getting on base a lot. I didn't expect him to have a 3-homer game, but I expect him to be this dominant, putting the ball in the bleachers and being effective, and that's what he's doing. So took a couple games, but looks like he's getting that rhythm back, and he's just getting going. So yeah, I expected this.
Yeah, and tonight is a perfect example of like how much he has evolved going back to last year as a hitter. Like, I think it was his second home run. He took a Garrett Cole fastball that was a good 2 inches in off the plate, and he pulled his hands in and hit a rocket into the visiting bullpen. Like, to have the kind of bat speed that he has, where he, things that he worked on, that he refined, hitting the ball more in the air, elevating a little bit more going into last season. He's kind of refined even more this year. And you can just tell, like, he's not just a bona fide power hitter. And that's not what he was last year either. Like, he proved like he's just all around, like an all around beast. And like, it's tough to strike him out. Like, you essentially have to pitch around him. Like, he's sort of getting back into that groove again. Like, he's 4 for 4 tonight, 3 bombs. I think honestly that third at bat he had against Garrett Cole tonight, he got down 0-2 very quickly, by the way. And then Cole gave him a mistake, but it wasn't like, the worst of mistake 0-2 pitches. And he just slapped it down the right field line for a double. Like, to get down in the count like that and to not lose composure and then, just put a ball in play was impressive. I know that's something that is said a lot and that's what they teach you, but at this level, it's the best of the best that actually do it. And so he's done that and he's doing it tonight. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him, man. I'm excited to see what's to come. I think he's a little bit motivated by last year, to say the least. And now that he's got the pieces around him, even more so, he's the Jays in general are going to look that much better. So,
and it was good to see because his first 2 years, obviously, were very hyped up. He was the number one prospect in baseball over Fernando Tatis Jr.
Mhm.
He didn't play like it his first 2 years. He had an average first 2 years, which is still good. To still be a league average player in your first 2 years is good. And then he lost weight, and you mentioned the bat speed. It's been incredible to watch. And, the guy he lost to, Shohei Ohtani, has not been off to a start. And, I mean, it's really hard to sustain the success that anyone has the year before. And I think that's also what's making what Vladdy did tonight super impressive. But Shohei Ohtani's had a rough start at the plate. I mean, Cole, you were kind of talking about it before the show, so we'll let you lead off with, I mean, are you concerned about Shohei?
not too much. I mean, again, given what that guy has to do, his workload is significantly larger than ever. He's got a lot on his plate, and he does such a good job managing that already. I'm not too worried. I do think that naturally we will probably see at least a little bit of regression this year. I don't think he'll be, but then again, it's hard. It's super hard to follow up a year like he had last year on both sides. And it's super hard for a guy like Vlad to put up the season that he had last year. Are those guys going to naturally take slightly a step back? Yeah, probably. If even one of those guys is even better than they were last year, then I mean, first off, that would be awesome. But second off, that's how that's solidified. Like, okay, if this guy wasn't a acclaimed generational talent before, now he's, now it's even more so. Now that potential and ceiling is through the roof. So I'm not too worried. Again, it's so early. I think guys get off to slow starts all the time, and I think he's already kind of impacted the game in other ways, like he naturally does. That's why guys like that win MVP, because while they're not always hitting home runs or lighting up the radar gun, they're stealing a base or they're making a wild play in the field. Like he's going to be fine. I think he just needs a little bit more time to get back into a rhythm. So I'm not worried.
I'd agree. I'm not worried about Shohei at all. I think that he has to get into a rhythm, like you said, Cole, but I think that you're going to see it. The impact of not having a full spring training is going to affect some players, and I think he's going to be one of those guys. But his ability to bring value, not just at the plate but on the mound, is going to, I think, be even more crucial this year for the Angels because they spent some money and improved the bullpen a little bit. Starting rotation is still not there, so they're going to have to lean on him a little bit to be a dominant pitcher. So his value on the mound is going to be crucial for them this year, even more than it was last year. And the batting's going to come. The hits are going to come. He's going to improve in that sense, but he's got to get into a rhythm. He's got to improve his consistency at the plate because last year you saw it. His average wasn't there to win MVP as people were saying, but he brought value on the mound. So it's just going to take him to get into a rhythm, like you said, Cole, and once he sees one get out, he's going to a lot more going to come. So I'm not worried about Shohei either. Yeah, he'll be fine. Dom, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a better hitter than what he's been, and he's only pitched once too. I think once he gets a more feel for it, I think that'll also help him as well. He's generational, and he's never really struggled at the plate that much. I mean, 2020 was, but pandemic year. He also had to deal. He was coming back from an injury as a pitcher, so that was certainly something. But I mean, his first start, he went 4 2/3 and struck out 9 guys.
Yeah.
So as long as the pitching's there, I mean, that's where in my opinion, they need him the most. I think most people would agree there. But his hitting's going to turn it around because, I mean, his track record says it all. Career OPS plus 135. So he's what you would consider good at baseball. And another guy that you could consider good at baseball is the first place Guardians, their new young rookie, Steve Kwan. Ryan, you got to see Kwan play because your Royals, of course, played the Guardians, split the first series with them.
Not happy about it, but
didn't ask about that. How impressed were you by Kwan?
That man is disciplined at the plate. I believe that he and Ahmed Rosario were the reasons why their offense got going. Ahmed Rosario does not get out in Kansas City, but focus on Kwan. Watching him at bat, that man does not chase anything. He kind of reminds me of Juan Soto a little bit with just their discipline at the plate. And you've seen it. He set the record for most, I believe, most at-bats. No, not at-bats. Most pitches seen without a swing and a miss. And at 115 since 2000. And that man does not stumble once. His ability to get on base, draw a lot of walks, get the ball in the grass in the outfield. I think he was probably the most impressive player that I saw from the Guardians offensively in the series against Kansas City because of his ability to use his discipline to force the pitcher to make a mistake because they know they've got to get it in the strike zone. So, yeah, he definitely stood out.
Yeah. He's one of those guys who he's kind of an early season, breakout guy, who just it was Akil Baddoo last year, who just kind of bursts onto the scene and kind of comes out of nowhere and is really good. I think the difference between a guy like that and Stephen Kwan is, we have at least heard of him because of what he has done in the minors, at least over the last year. I think he played a full season of AAA last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and it's also crazy to think he's the 12th player in their farm system. He's ranked 12.
Yeah.
Which you would not have thought after what we've seen from him so far.
No, absolutely. And it's probably mainly just because, the pop really isn't there. I mean, I think it was last year in the minors, he hit double-digit homers, again, playing mainly AAA, which that's pretty telling. Like, that's a pretty good sign as to whether or not you think a big league hitter is ready. Like, that's a good measure for it. If he's hitting for power and for average in the minor leagues, and he was doing that. But even going back to college, I mean, I remember hearing about Stephen Kwan when he was at Oregon State, and, he was a dog there too. I mean, high 300s, 400 average, constantly putting the ball in play, barely ever struck out, walks a lot. And early in the season, we've kind of been getting that. I think he struck out for the first time this season today. He has 8 walks.
He didn't swing and miss until yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
Longest start in the modern baseball era without swinging and missing.
Which that's
says a lot.
Again, that's impressive. Yeah. And the power's not quite there yet, but I mean, with the rest of the thump that kind of resides in that order, it doesn't really need to be. He's going to be good, especially considering how good he was after having played nearly a full season of AAA. Like, he's going to get a lot of at bats this year, unless he really starts to struggle, which I doubt it. They're not going to send him down, so he's a staple in their outfield for the coming months at bare minimum. So it'll be fun to see how he kind of fits in and how he kind of molds into more of a complete hitter as the season goes on. But yeah, it's been fun to watch.
And I was listening to the Austin Hedges episode of the Chris Rose Rotation, which is a fantastic baseball podcast if you're looking to get even more baseball content in addition to the Golden Spur Show. And one of the things that Hedges was saying, and Hedges is a very smart baseball player, like one of the smartest guys in the league. He's also one of the 4 players who has a what's it called?
A degree?
No, not a degree. No, there are more than 4 who have a what's it called? Like when you like get a product approved and like
a pat.
Yeah, he's one of 4 patented Major League Baseball players, and so
I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, a patent. It's for his mask, and he was talking about. He's like, "Listen," he's like, We're not a team that's going to blow you out of the water in terms of talent. Everyone in here knows that. However, we know what this team is built to do. It's built on pitching. That's what this team has been built on the entire time. That's how we got to the World Series a couple years ago. That's how we've been into the playoffs a couple times since then. And it's all about, can the guys at the plate just meet their expectations? And he's like, there's a bunch of guys in here like myself, like a couple of other players who aren't established at the major league, who, if they can just meet their expectations this year, we're going to win a lot of damn ball games. And that's what you're seeing through a week. It's through a week. But to their credit, I mean, some of the guys have absolutely showed up for them. And the Guardians keep winning. Ryan, first game in Guardians history, the Royals were able to beat them. I mean, what have been your first impressions of the Royals? We'll kind of go around and give our impressions of our teams right now.
I mean,
they won one today.
I mean, game one, opening day, this was probably one of the most exciting ones in a few years because, Zach Greinke come back, first start since, I believe it's 2012. I may be off on that, 2010, right around there. Bobby Witt, his first major league hit, 2 RBIs, gives the Royals the lead. So there was a lot of excitement build up, but all that excitement quickly faded in the last 3 games because you have the way they won it with Bobby Witt in game 1. Game 2 was a pitcher's duel. Brad Keller looked fantastic. And we mentioned pitch count and innings earlier. He only threw 6 innings and had 69 pitches. And then he was done. So teams are kind of – sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Teams are starting to keep their pitchers low and going to build them up, which I'm okay with. So I thought the pitching in the first 2 games was fantastic. Then the Guardians offense woke up, beat the Royals 17-3, then 10-7. Scored 27 runs over the last 18 innings. I did not expect that whatsoever after holding them to 1 run over the previous 18 innings. But the pitching outside of Greinke and Keller has me extremely worried. Lynch last night did not look good, gave up 2 homers in the first inning. Bubic didn't even get out of the first inning. And then Hernandez struggled. So I am not happy with how the rotation has looked outside of the first 2. I expected more, especially from those 3, because they ended the season so well last year, had a great second halves, and just did not translate. And I know it's 1 start, but still frustrating. And then the bullpen, yikes, not looking good either. They've had some good pieces here and there, but that was my worry going into the season was the bullpen. They went out, got Amir Garrett. Scott Barlow was back, same with Brent and Stalmont. They've struggled, and it's not looking good there. But the one that's worrying me the most is Brady Singer. He pitched himself out of the starting rotation with a 7 ERA in spring training, barely makes the roster. His first appearance gives up 4 runs in 3 innings. He's pitching himself out of a major league job right now. He didn't look good last year after a promising rookie year in the short season. And I know it's a short season, blah, blah, blah. But I expected a lot more from Singer, and he's not delivering. But the pitching is just not where it should be outside of Greinke and Keller, which is worrisome. And then the offense has really started slow as well. Looking at the lineup, they have some guys that can get on base a lot. And the lineup's been slow. Perez started off slow. Didn't have a hit until the final game of the series against the Guardians. Last night finally got it going a little bit, as it seems, with 2 homers, which was awesome. But the offense has started slow. They didn't hit a home run until the 3rd game of the year, which was frustrating. But overall, need to fix pitching. But 2 and 3, can't really complain about that yet.
There you go. There's your Royals review from Ryan, and now we'll go to the D-backs dump from Cole. That wasn't like a dump, like trash dump.
No, that's a good play on words. I see what you're trying to do there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. My choice of words.
It was good. It's a good alliteration. Yeah, I mean, it's I've said it a few times. I'll say it again. It makes it a lot easier to get into a profession like this when you root for a team that you just don't really have a lot of expectations going. And the embodiment of that is the Arizona Diamondbacks. So that's kind of a summation of it. If anything's been good, it's been the pitching. I was looking at numbers today, and it's probably changed a little bit, but this was also, I think it was just when they were hitting extra innings against the Astros today, which they won. And I saw they have a 3 ERA through these first 5 or 6 games now, which is impressive because of how bad they were last year. And I talked a little bit about it before, but bringing in a guy like Brent Strom, who before this season proved himself and then some with Houston, with what he did helping out Verlander and Garrett Cole and so many other generations of mediocre arm. I think Charlie Morton would probably be in that category as well, and then turn them into elite level pitchers. It was really exciting to see how he was going to work with this staff. And I'm not putting all the credit on a pitching coach necessarily, but to take largely the exact same pitching staff and to see these kind of numbers, at least early in the season, is encouraging. Madison Bumgarner's opening day start was not great, but it was mainly because of pitch count. His last start, which was last night, was better. Merrill Kelly, by the way, looks like an ace. He has not given up a run in 9 1/3. He struck out 13 guys. He looks very, very good. I'm impressed.
That was the report out of camp, and I'm like, oh, maybe he's gonna figure out that not every team is the San Diego Padres. And
right.
I think he's figured that out,
which is fantastic because they extended him for 2 more years, and he deserved that. Leaps and bounds. He obviously deserves that. I didn't expect it to be this good to start, though. So, I mean, consider me pleasantly surprised. He's kind of the only individual bright spot right now because the offense is not doing anything at all. I was telling Dom this before the show. Currently, the Diamondbacks lead the league in walk rate. It's like 14%. That's 2% higher than any other team, but they are pretty much last or second to last in every other offensive category. And it's mainly because of today, because they walked a crap ton and they stranded 14 runners, yet finished with only 6 hits. And I'm pretty sure the first run they got was on a bases loaded hit by pitch RBI for Ketel Marte.
That's something else.
Which is hilarious.
So he drove in both runs, but he didn't actually hit the ball.
He drove in 2 of the 3. Seth Beer tied the game in the 10th,
right.
It looked like.
And then, his run on the last inning isn't an RBI because it was on an error.
Right.
So the 2 runs that he got in were on a hit by pitch.
Yeah.
And on an error.
It was very Diamondbacks. The 2 wins the Diamondbacks have had so far this season are
both walk-offs.
They're very just awkward and pretty ugly and borderline unwatchable. But they won the game. So it's gonna be a rough year, but I'd say I'm pretty impressed with the pitching. I am. I think largely it wasn't a great weekend against San Diego, but it was mainly because of the offense. I think there was a couple games the pitching kind of kept them in it, but it was just nothing doing. So, they're dealing with some injuries already. Zach Gallen was scratched from his first start. I don't think it's anything serious, but we also don't really know what it is. And then, it looks like Luke Weaver's going to be out for a little bit. So it's rough, man, but the pitching's encouraging. Again, I'm not expecting too much. And honestly, it's cool to see a guy like Merrill Kelly, who is so easy to root for after all he's been through in his career, have the kind of success he's had early in this season. So kudos to him as well.
Yeah, I think that the Diamondbacks have only scored 4 runs against starting pitching, which is tremendously bad in 6 games. But 2 and 4, it's not awful, especially considering the fact that, fingers crossed, they've played against 2 playoff teams this year. So, like I said, fingers crossed.
Now they got to go play the Mets.
Hey, Ryan, you awake?
No, he fell asleep because the Diamondbacks are just
yeah.
They'll do that to you.
Right. And so now I will, of course, return and talk about the Padres. The Padres? Well, the Padres, they look really good sometimes and they look really bad some other times. They're like, go Padres. So 4-3, took 3 out of 4 in Arizona. Definitely should have swept. They basically controlled the series for 35 of the 36 innings. And in the bottom of the ninth on opening day, brought in a pitcher who was making his major league debut because they traded away the one guy on the team that had any closing experience, and the guy they acquired to be the closer threw a bullpen the night before. Suarez, who closed in Japan, proceeded to walk the first batter, walk the second batter, and hit the third batter before being pulled. And then Craig Stammen came in through 2 pitches. The first one went to the backstop. The next one went about 375 feet into the bleachers in right field. And the D-backs put the ball in play once in that ninth inning and scored 4 runs. It hurt. It hurt a lot, but it's okay because they responded the next 3 times. The starting rotation has been phenomenal with the exception of the Yu Darvish start in San Francisco, which has been a very bad location for Darvish to start. He's now pitched, I believe, 19 and a third innings there and has allowed 21 earned runs. So not good, as one would say. But the bullpen's also been really, really good. The lineup, there's been some shining spots. Hosmer, dude loves to perform in April. I mean, what else can I say? And then
Will not
yeah.
last.
Oh, I thought you were saying Will Myers not. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding.
Well, that too.
Right. That's not what you're pointing out, but yes. And then also Jurickson Profar has been pretty good to start, and furthering Ryan's point, probably won't last either. But then there's also been some players who have not been off to a great start. Cronenworth and Machado, who are, the 2 best healthy players on the team right now.
Which I find funny because didn't you say that you thought Machado was going to step up with the absence of Tatis?
Dude, we're 1 week into a 162 game season.
I know.
Right?
It's just,
and he's hit
the
the ball hard. I was going to say they've been okay. They've had average years for a week, and they're going to step it up. I have faith. But Will Myers and Trent Grisham, 2 of the 3 centerpieces in the outfield, have been horrific to start. Will Myers has struck out in, I think, about 50% of his at-bats, and that's really bad, and especially for a guy that has as much discipline as Myers. To see him striking out is pretty frustrating, and so does Grisham. He hasn't been striking out as much, just not putting quite as good wood on the ball. So, I mean, the Padres are going to be fine. They go home now for the first time, get to open up the first homestand. And Mackenzie Gore is expected to make his debut on Friday. And that is absolutely electric because I've been waiting for this day for a long time, since 2018 when he was performing strong in rookie ball, and then he went out and just absolutely balled in A-ball. And, ever since then, we've just been waiting. A lot of Padres fans lost hope. I have not been one of those guys, and I look forward to being able to relish in his debut for the good and the bad. So that is my Mackenzie Gore Padres update. We got just about 15 more minutes. Ryan, I'm going to swing it back to you since it's been a little bit. Who's one team you've been surprised by how good they've been, and one team you've been surprised by how bad they've been?
How bad they've been, the Brewers.
Yeah.
The pitching has been terrible.
Dude.
And that's not what I expected. Woodruff looked rough.
Yeah.
Freddie Peralta looked bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so did Burns. Burns did not allow a walk till over a month into the season. His first batter, he walked.
Burns was good today, though.
Yeah.
I saw he looked better today.
So he bounced back.
He was good. He went 7 scoreless.
He was on Cy Young behavior.
Good to see him bounce back, but the Brewers have not looked good. Yelich has continued to struggle, which I had hoped for his sake in Milwaukee and for the Brewers' sake, he'd have a better start, but man, that team is struggling.
Mm.
And then as for a team that's been shockingly good, it's the Guardians. They've scored 43 runs in their last 33 innings of baseball.
That's pretty good.
If you would have told me this looking at that lineup, I would have called you crazy. The offense is looking good, and their pitching, like we all expected, has been good as well. So Guardians have been shockingly good, while the Brewers have been shockingly bad to start.
And the Guardians lead baseball in runs by over 9 at this point. That's
Yeah.
that's impressive.
No,
Yep.
they've been raking right now.
Same questions to you, Cole.
With the Brewers, just for the sake of the conversation, I have also kind of I've been a little shocked, pleasant I guess. Well, I've been shocked by how the Red Sox have kind of started. Like, they just took 2 out of 3 against they just basically took the series against the Tigers, but the offense looks a little shaky, just a little bit. They'll get going, it'll be fine, but that pitching is whoa, dude. Like, I think a lot of people knew it was going to be like their defining trait this year. Like, it was either going to be really good or it was going to be really bad, and it doesn't look great right now. They're without Chris Sale, which that's already kind of a detriment. If I'm not mistaken, Trevor Story's only played a couple games. I don't know if he's hurt or something.
Got off to a bad start.
Yeah,
I saw that he was listed as day-to-day. I think he might have tweaked something. I don't know the extent of it, but I did say that he was day-to-day. So that could explain a couple things.
Yeah, like he's got to get going. It looks a little rough right now. But, again, I think they're picking things up. I take the record at this point of the season with a grain of salt for everybody just because it's early. But I think it's kind of interesting because I've watched a couple of their games. I've been mainly watching the Tigers because, excited about that team. But
Torkelson hit his first homer today.
did, yeah, that was
First
cool to see.
multi-hit team as well.
Yes. So that's kind of my disappointing team. My surprising team, I would have to say, honestly, dude, the Rockies have started off.
Yeah.
That's one I forgot about. I agree, though.
Rockies took the series at home, or they split it at least, I think.
No, they won the series.
Went
won the series.
3-1 against the Dodgers.
Yeah,
2-1.
Wait, I thought it was a 4-game set.
No,
No.
it's 3-game set.
Okay, I'm
Took
stupid.
2 out of 3 against the Dodgers at home. Great start. Won a big one last night against.
They took both games against Texas.
Yeah,
I think it was
against
just a
Texas.
2-2. It's a 2-2.
Yeah.
They'll host them for 2 games later.
Connor Joe has been really good.
Shout out Poway native, East County.
Chris Bryant hasn't hit that home run yet, but hitting the ball well. CJ Crone is looking good too. Herman Marquez was amazing in his first start.
He's
I
good.
think he only gave up like 3 hits in 7 innings at Coors against the Dodgers.
You can't be serious.
Yeah, are you kidding me? I would also put the Guardians in that category of surprisingly good. Like, they've just been raking right now, like blowing the doors off of teams. Jose Ramirez, no shocker there, is looking like an MVP candidate. So
Shayram.
those are kind of my standouts in that regard.
Yeah,
There's something else that we didn't mention is that he did sign his extension.
right.
So-
After Hector Gomez was like, "Oh, the Padres are showing interest in Jose Ramirez."
Yeah, I saw that and
it's,
laughed.
It's like saying the frat guy is interested in the girl that's at the party. It's like, okay, the Padres are interested in everyone. So
Dom, you struggle with making some comparisons, but that one was good.
That was
I'll
good.
give you credit for that.
I enjoyed that
I
one.
feel like I make pretty good comparisons, Ryan.
That one was good.
All right, I appreciate your honesty.
For being on the spot, that was a really good one.
Sweet. And, it would have been very upsetting to see another star player leave Cleveland. But
Not for me. I would have loved it.
Well, yeah, as a baseball fan, Ryan, it would have been disappointing. Cleveland should be a major market. It absolutely should be. Their fans don't show up to games, and that's partly because their owners don't invest in the team. I remember there were 15 games into their winning streak, and they were averaging 25,000 fans per night. And once it got a little bit higher up there, buzz started to get around and the game started to be sellouts. But it would have been disappointing, and I'm glad to see that he's sticking around because he has been so consistent. He's never been the best player, but he's always been right there. And I think that Jose Ramirez still deserves more credit. We all trumped him as the best third baseman in baseball when we did our preseason rankings, which if you want, you're listening to this on YouTube, you can go back and listen to those rankings. And if you're listening to us on BizRadioOnline.com, we're also live on YouTube if you want to watch us talk about baseball. It's a little bit more listening than just more interesting than just listening to us. So yeah, that was cool. And I mean, yeah, you guys kind of mentioned it. I've been impressed with the Cubs.
Me too.
Only allowed 16 runs so far. They got crushed by the Pirates today, but that's fine. You win some, you lose some, but their pitching staff has been super impressive so far. I've allowed just 16 runs, but another team that I've been super impressed with is actually the A's. They went on the road and hung around in Philadelphia, was able to take one of those games, and then they went on the road again. Going on the East Coast, to start, you'd rather start on the East Coast. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to go back later on in the year. And for them to then go down to Tampa Bay against, once again, another playoff team and play really well, take 2 out of 3. The other one they lost in extra innings. Super impressed with the A's. And I spent some time at A's spring training this season, flex. And, I mean, Mark Kotsay seems like a guy who could absolutely be a leader of a clubhouse. And that's something I was super impressed with. The talent, maybe one that stands out, but the A's have always been built on having that strong clubhouse. And that's certainly going to be the case once again this year. And you almost would like to think they weren't going to let Bob Melvin go for no reason. And that's probably because they felt like, we got a guy in here we feel like could be a really good head coach for us. And that's probably Mark Kotsay. So those are 2 teams that I've been impressed with, but a little concerned about the Seattle Mariners. We talked about it last year, run differential awards. They won the first 2 games of the season. They've lost their last 3 and currently trail in the 9th to the Chicago White Sox. Tough to start on the road, especially in those conditions out there in the Midwest right now. It's been cold and rainy, but they haven't looked that good. Robbie Ray got touched up. Of course, the White Sox love to face left-handed pitchers because their lineup is so right-handed heavy. Just wait until you get into the postseason and all you see are these heavy right-handed arms, and they're probably going to fall apart again. But the Mariners have not looked that great. Have only scored 12 runs entering today. They put up 4. So currently at 16 through 6 games, that is definitely the worst in baseball. And you'd like to see that offense improve a little bit because they have a lot of talent in there. And Mitch Haniger, pending free agent. I mean, if this team's not doing too hot, they have other outfielders they could call up and put in his spot. So that is certainly a name that you're going to have to be watching as the season rolls along.
Yeah, man. I love that.
All right, we got a couple more minutes left. Is there anything else that we want to talk about on this Wednesday Skull and Sombrero show?
Well,
Red Sox are hurting themselves badly with Bogarts and Devers. Because I saw a report earlier today saying that they offered Bogarts a 1-year extension. He called it a slap in the face. When they signed Story, it kind of seemed like a move like the Dodgers made last year, getting Trey Turner as a backup in case Bogarts leaves. But they're not even close with Devers, which losing both of them is bad, but losing one of them is also detrimental. So I don't know what they're doing, but they got to lock up at least Devers. So
Yeah.
That's something to be worried about if you're a Red Sox fan.
And we talked about it before the show. Another contract that was being thrown out in the air is my boy Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
And he, of course, turned down a massive contract, 7 years, $215 million. He thinks he deserves more money or longer time. And, he's earned a lot of money with his play. But at the same time, everyone loves to point out can't stay healthy. And, it's got to be hard for a team to go out and offer him a lengthy contract that is worth a ton of money, knowing his health risk. And I mean, what do you think of that, Cole?
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, shout out because he hit his first home run tonight. That's big, helps his case. I think, first off, always bet on yourself. That's what Aaron Judge is doing, as he rightfully should. He knows he's one of the best players in this league when he's healthy, and he's proven that. And I think the key for him is just going to be staying healthy, particularly this year, because if he wants to get paid next year, he no doubt will. But say he, knock on wood, misses a good chunk of games this year, that's going to take a little that says something. His potential payout's going to take a little bit of a hit there. And I think to ensure the best payout, whether it's from the Yankees or from someone else at the end of the season, regardless of how this whole thing goes, because like I said, if the Yankees are sub 500 and are, near the bottom of this division come July, they're probably going to be fielding offers for him.
Mhm.
And in that case, I think it's within their best interest to trade him because you want to get as much value out of a guy like that as you can while you still can, rather than letting him walk, because you will get a lot out of Aaron Judge. Regardless, I like the idea of him betting on himself. He knows he's just as good as anyone else in baseball when he's healthy. He impacts the game on both sides. He's an elite defender in right. He has a cannon of an arm. He has an incredible feel for the strike zone. His power is on a whole nother level at the plate. He deserves every bit of a bonus or just a giant contract that he will get from free agency. So we'll see what happens, but recognizing that.
Sorry, could not find the unmute button on StreamYard for a
Yeah, you
second.
got anything else to add, Ryan, before we get out of here?
Yeah. With Aaron Judge, you guys know I've been heavily pushing against how the hype on him because of his health. But if he can prove that he can stay healthy, he's going to be set getting a long-term contract. And I think it kind of shows the Yankees are worried about his health, only giving him 7 years, because he's a guy that can probably get 10 to 12 years on a contract. And he didn't get it from them. But I think he's still worth a lot of money regardless. But I agree with Cole. Always bet on yourself, and that's what he's doing. And some team is going to give him a lot of money because when he is on the field, he is a terrific hitter and he's a terrific fielder. He's a top 10 player in this sport and in the MLB. Just need the health to be there as well. So he's going to get paid regardless, but he can only help himself by staying healthy this year.
I agree. And with that, we're going to wrap up the Golden Sombrero Show. We thank you all for tuning, whether you're listening to us on blazeradioonline.com or on YouTube. Check in with us next Wednesday at the same time, 7 o'clock Pacific time, and we'll come back with you some more baseball updates. This has been the Golden Sombrero Show. On behalf of Ryan Blank and Cole Bradley, I'm Dominic Stern. Have a great rest of your Wednesday evening.